Dzień dobry. I prepared my presentation in English because I address some remarks for our guests from Clarivate Analytics. I represent journal Przegląd Elektrotechniczny and a company, Sigma Not, the largest company, Polish company editing technical journals. Przegląd Elektrotechniczny is a journal with great tradition. We are one of the oldest journal in Poland, and even we are the oldest journal devoted to electrical engineering in Europe. We celebrate this year 100 years. I think that 100 years anniversary. I think that I was invited to this presentation because we are quite experienced in cooperation with Web of Science, because we 2 times were accepted to Web of Science and 1 time we were dropped from this list. I am editor-in-chief since 17 years, and when I started in 2002, our journal had a difficult period. Our reputation lost. We had a little submission enabling to publish not more than several papers amounts, and subscription decreased dramatically from 1,000 to hundreds. Therefore, we endangered by liquidation, and I obtained only 1 year to introduce repair program. In this repair program, we perform 4 main steps. The first step, I think it is still always most important. It is to recover and to collect the best as possible authors and reviewers. In this helped me that I have friendly relations with many prominent professors in Poland, and I simply invited them to write in our journal, and they couldn't refuse me. And indeed, after several months, when other authors observed that in our journal are quite significant and important papers, and in our journal are publishing reputable authors, submission increased significantly, and we were able to publish every month more than 100 high-quality papers. And this introduced second step. We have only one source of income, subscription. In Poland, journals are relatively cheap, and therefore from subscription, we were able only to publish not more than 20 pages. Therefore, as one of the first journals in Poland, we decided to demand authors to participate in printing cost. But we didn't apply charge or fee. We simply calculated typical printing cost, and we demanded authors to cover them. Because this amount was reasonably small, about $40 per page, and we applied a significant discount for students, this step was generally easily accepted by authors. And third step, to compensate necessity of payment, we opened our journal to access to papers. Of course, such step is always with a risk that it can be at the cost of subscription, but in our case, subscription remains stable. And in my opinion, open access has many advantages. It improves circulation of the papers and potentially improve citations. And the last step, we decided to invite English papers. It was a very difficult decision for us, because we are official journal of Polish Society of Electrical Engineers, and we always taken a care to support quality of Polish language. We couldn't forget that our tradition, that in our journal, published in wonderful Polish language, famous Polish scientists as Pożaryski, Nowacki, Gruszkowski. Therefore, we decided only to recommend writing in English, and today about 70% of papers is in English. But English language, surprisingly, opened our journal for foreign authors. surprisingly, because it was a lot of papers from such countries as Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and even Ukraine and Russia, mainly from Central and East Europe. In some countries also today, for example, in Macedonia or Slovenia, we are the most important technical journal. Therefore, when we started submission to Web of Science, we pointed that we are not only local Polish journal, but we represent a large potential of Central and East Europe. I don't know if it helped us, but unexpectedly in 2008, we were accepted to Web of Science. It completely changed our situation, because in that time were not more than 10 technical journals in Web of Science. Our journal appeared suddenly as a very valuable for authors to publish in. The submission increased significantly, especially from foreign countries. Now we were able to really select the best papers. I would like to, by the way, I would like to alert potential candidates to Web of Science that besides obvious advantages, there are some drawbacks of this situation. In our case, we obtained, after accession, we obtained a number of emails and submitted papers increased more than tenfold. We obtained 1,000 mails and 100 papers a week. It was practically organizing catastrophe. I had to break writing of my paper, practically finished, for Taylor and Francis. We observed with satisfaction development of our journal, mainly due to presence in Web of Science. Therefore, it was a great shock for us. Then after 5 years, we were dropped from the list. It was for us completely illogical, because in general opinion, we represented much higher and better quality when we were dropped in comparison with the time when we were accepted. The official reason was a large factor of self-citation. Also, this accusation was for us irrational, because in our case, we never influenced the citation, and large self-citation resulted that for most of the authors, our journal was the main journal from Web of Science. They can be published papers. I think that a reasonable and better and just solution would be simply to assume that self-citation are not citation at all, and practically they shouldn't be taken into account in evaluation. Our collapse was very famous in Poland and widely discussed. I was invited to popular journal Polityka to write about this situation. Of course, we were not without fault. The main our fault was that we published too many papers with low citation potential. We were under great pressure of huge submission, and we were very satisfied that we so widely participate in international exchange. The great submission was for us signal that we are needed and wanted, and a reverse strategy, more effective and more reasonable, to go to exclusivity, what we, for many authors, would be a disappointment. We also made quite stupid errors. For example, because name Przegląd Elektrotechniczny is difficult for foreign authors, we add a second component, Przegląd Elektrotechniczny, electrical review. But most of English authors, English language authors, use only this second component, and in this way we lost a lot of citation that were attributed to other journal. For our journal, we had again the difficult period, because many authors migrate to other journals. Nevertheless, we again introduced a repair program. First of all, we decreased number of the papers and improved quality of review process. Very important for us was to be international journal. And today, about 30% of papers are foreign papers. Fortunately, we were in Scopus and in Web of Science, and after our dropping from Web of Science, Scopus was quite sufficient for many authors. And what for me is more important, it appeared that we have many faithful authors that didn't leave us in a difficult period. We remain in high position in Poland, and in a ranking performed by ministry, taking into account influence factor, we were placed on second position among all scientific journals. No wonder that we then again started, after 5 years, started submission to Web of Science. Practically all technical universities in Poland sent letters of supporting to evaluation office. I don't know if it helped us, but we again, in last year, were accepted to Web of Science, but this time to emerging index. To tell true, I don't feel many joy and satisfaction. More I am in quiet. Emerging list is only a test period and chance if we will not obtain significant improvement of mainly of citation, the history can be repeated and we can fall into periodic cycle dropping and acceptation. Due to my experiences in cooperation with Web of Science, I know how many objective obstacles we have to overcome. For example, it is relatively easy to obtain great impact factor in the case of small journals where they can strongly select authors and they control citation. We are a large journal, more than 2 pages amount, official journal of electrical society, Polish society, and we can't perform so strong selection because we should serve the whole scientific and research community. And our duty is to publish papers from industry, papers of young scientists, Polish language papers. All these papers have low citation potential, but they are also important. It is about more than 30 years when our country returned to community of democratic countries, but in my opinion, differences remain and even increased. For example, the opening of the border resulted in great migration of the best Polish science. It is not normal that the world is divided into 2 parts. One high technology countries and the rest of the world that can be only active in agriculture and mining. Last time I published 2 papers from exotic small countries, Bangladesh and Kosovo. In this way, we would like to express to our solidarity with authors that in a normal case have very little chance to present their achievement in Web of Science. It would be not correct if a result of selection would be that the scientific literature is only in several countries and the rest of the countries is a blank area. Therefore, we invited with great appreciation the idea of climate analytics to create something like second league emerging index. In this way, many new authors can be present in Web of Science, and new journals have possibility to improve citation. And what is more important, by opening Web of Science for new journals, Clarivate support or support not only journals but also countries to develop. It is important question. What is more important, selection or representation of the whole scientific work? I have only one small, I don't feel why Clarivate trade both leaks in different way. Only in the first case, it is published full statistic, including impact factor. In my opinion, technically, it is very easy to trade both leaks in the same way. And in this way, we can assume that it is quite normal that exist parallelly journals of different level of development, of different quality, but all these journals are important. Thank you.